Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Today on a Saturday morning. I'm Lester Holt reporting from Henryville, Indiana, a town that was utterly devastated by Friday's storms.
And I'm Amy Robach here inside Studio 1A, and here's what we know right now. At least 31 people are dead, 14 confirmed in Indiana, 14 in Kentucky, and 3 in Ohio, and that number is expected to rise today. Authorities say it's difficult to determine how many people are missing as searchers struggle with the lack of electricity in many areas.
More than 85 tornadoes were reported on Friday. It was the second time in a week that storms swept across parts of the nation's midsection. 10 states were under some kind of weather threat. The hardest hit areas are in southern Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, and northern Alabama. Now, in terms of size, this storm system was enormous. We watched it building all day. It stretched from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes. It was so wide that an estimated 34 million people were at risk for severe weather. That's according to the National Weather Service, Amy.
And Lester, you were just in Harrisburg, Illinois, and I know you arrived in Henryville about an hour ago. Can you describe where you are and what you've seen?
We're about 30 minutes or so from Louisville, Kentucky, and like so many of these tornado scenes, it just happens upon you. You're driving, everything looks normal, and then suddenly you realize there's that the trees are all leveled, the buildings are down. This is the Henryville Junior-Senior High School. The left side is actually the elementary school. That part was built only about a year ago to tornado standards. You see these buses here in the parking lot? What they had done was, realizing storms were approaching, they emptied out the school. They shut school down early and sent the kids home. There was no tornado warning at that point, but they knew bad weather was on the way. A lot of kids got on the buses. As the buses left, the drivers in some cases saw the wall, the storm itself coming, and decided to bring the kids back and got them inside to safety. And you can see what's left of the bus. And we'll tell you more of that story a bit later on. But of course, this is one town among many in several states hit by that onslaught of storms that marched the midsection yesterday. NBC's Tom Costello is in Chelsea, Indiana. He's got more from there. Tom, good morning.
Hi, Lester. Good morning to you. And by point of reference, we're also about 30 miles or so north of Louisville, right up State Highway 62. This was a gentleman's shed, a family's shed. Back there is their home, but that's not where the home used to be. It used to be about 100 yards that way, behind the cameraman. What happened is the mother and the daughter were gone yesterday afternoon. The husband was here alone. He saw this massive storm coming, estimates of 150-mile-per-hour winds, maybe an EF4. He saw this thing coming and realized he could not possibly survive it by staying here. Got in his truck and he started driving. He managed to get away. Unfortunately, 3 family members just across the road, they were not so lucky. This is all that's left of Henryville High School. This Indiana town, about 20 miles north of Louisville, Kentucky, saw some of the worst of it as a string of powerful storms ripped a path of destruction from northern Alabama to southern Indiana. The kids got out of the school only 15 minutes before the winds ripped it apart.
We got on the buses and we started heading to my house, and the tornado was following us. Luckily, this woman was so generous to let us stay in her basement.
The Clark County Sheriff's Office describes Marysville, 10 miles east of Henryville, as, quote, completely gone. This is what the supercell storm looked like after flattening Harvest, Alabama. Harvest hadn't even finished rebuilding from a tornado that hit there less than 10 months ago.
We had just got in January and moved back into the house and getting ready to move that mobile home. It picked it up, turned it around, and slammed it into the house.
West Liberty, Kentucky didn't even have that much time to recover. This is the second deadly storm to hit the town in just 48 hours. In the thick of the storm, hail pelted cars, coming down so furiously that they had to pull off the road. Power lines and trees are down everywhere, blocking roads and trapping victims of the storms in the middle of the wreckage and keeping rescuers out. For people in this part of the country, it's hard to imagine that so much could be lost and so much damage could be done in just a few short hours.
It's hard. It's just hard on everybody. Everything's gone. You know, everything's just gone.
Here's the headline in the morning paper. It just says it all. Terrible tragedy here in southern Indiana. Again, in this area, in Chelsea, 4 people dead. Lester, just as we were running that taped report, the sun kind of broke over the horizon here, and I said to my cameraman, it's just everywhere. The devastation is everywhere, and I'm just now getting a good look at it now that the sun's coming up. But throughout this entire farm region, trees are ripped to shreds, homes are gone. It is just a terrible scene. Back to you.
And as you were talking, I was having the same realization. I got here a short time ago, and you're right, as we look around, and we'll be showing more of this. It is unbelievable. Tom Costello, thanks. The Weather Channel's Jim Cantore is also here in Henryville in front of what was a brand new elementary school. Jim, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Lester. It's hard to believe the same devastation that you or Tom are looking at may stretch for 80 miles. This is very similar to the types of tornadoes that we had back on April 27th of last year, and Mother Nature decided to start in March this year. Look at this. You can see this house behind me here. This one pushed about 50 yards, just torn right off its foundation, completely ripped in through here, and there is just debris everywhere, especially trees, pieces of homes. And here's the elementary school that you guys are all talking about. You can see these classrooms just ripped apart here. This isn't wood. I mean, we've got brick here. We've got metal framing that's just twisted like licorice. 30 minutes before this tornado, there were kids in that classroom. And you can't even imagine what that must have been like, certainly for the ones that were taking refuge in the school down below as the tornado ripped the top of this school off. Either way, this is still very much a breaking story. Much search and rescue needs to be done. Rural county roads have not even been gotten to, and you can see why, because we have piles of debris just like this just about everywhere you look. Again, guys, we're talking at least a mile wide here. Winds with this will probably be 170 to 200 plus miles per hour, and we haven't even gotten into potentially some of the worst damage yet. 95 tornadoes right now. If that stands, this will not only top the worst outbreak ever in March history in the United States, but it will equal a March average of tornadoes by one day. Back to you.
It could be.
It is stunning, isn't it? Jim Cantore, thanks. Henryville's high school, as we just heard, suffered extensive damage. With me right now is Dr. Glenn Riggs, who's the elementary school principal. We've got Monty Schneider, who is the superintendent of the West Clark School, and Troy Albert, who's the principal of the junior senior high school. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Let me start off with you, Mr. Schneider. You knew that bad weather was coming. At what point did you order the kids out of school?
Well, the tornado warning had not hit just about the time we had dismissal, and we had some conversation with the school here and told them it looked good. It looked like it was going to be just a while before it hit. Thought we could get the children home, and so they actually got them out about, I'd say, 10 minutes earlier than planned, and got most of the kids on the buses and got them out.
Now, you mentioned the buses. Before we continue, I want to let folks understand. We see buses here that are wrecked. Some of these buses returned with the kids, correct?
Yes. They either saw the storm clouds or saw tornadoes forming and returned to school. And there were very few students left in school, although these gentlemen can tell it much better than I can. But there were very few students left in school, and what students were there, they got them in the interior office areas and in enclosed spaces they could, and weathered the storm.
And I just want to show very quickly, we have another bus just across the lot from us that blew from this parking lot. We can take a picture of it, probably 400 or 500 feet. That's how strong this was. Dr. Riggs, you were inside with the kids. Where did you protect them, and what did you guys see, hear, and feel?
We were in our office core, and we had about 40 of us in 3 small offices. And basically, we're laying on the floor in the office, and there was like a decompression. It felt almost like your skin was going to be peeled off your face, and your ears popped. And of course, people were a little upset. Some of the children were upset, but and then the sound hit. And that was when the tornado hit the building, and it was just crash, bang, break, everything you could imagine.
You knew the school was breaking up around you.
We knew the school was going up around us, and then the ceilings began to kind of fall apart, and it was like a dust in there for probably about a minute, and then it did stop, and we knew at that point, praise God, we were fine.
And Troy, you were in another part of the school with another group of students. How were you guys doing?
Well, we were in the same situation, but it seemed to be a little bit more calm just because they were listening and following instruction. we had the 11 students that were on the bus that is in the building over here.
The bus that we see embedded in the building, you had kids.
There was 11 students that I held the door open and got them inside with their bus driver. The bus driver did an excellent job of getting them there. And basically what we did was go into our storm situation, and we had guests in the building and other workers, and we got everybody secured. And then I made a call to the staff. If there's any staff in the building, you need to get to the safe area now.
Well, any injuries among the kids or staff?
None.
None.
Everyone's safe, not an injury, one.
I can only imagine the scene afterwards. Frightened children, parents wanting to get to their kids. How did you get them all reunited?
Basically, we moved all the children to the community center after there was a second round of large hail. We had baseball-sized hail that came, which was very interesting on what was left of the roof also as far as sound. But after that came through, then we went down to the local community center where we were able to reunite parents and children. We had a lot of kids that would have been here late anyway from daycare facility that we have here on campus also.
Well, I know a lot of students and parents are grateful for what you did, and we're glad you're all safe.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing this. Thanks for sharing the story with us, Amy. Amazing stories like this. We're going to be hearing a lot more, certainly as we continue throughout the day.
All right, Lester, thanks so much. And unfortunately, the damage continues for many residents in Harvest, Alabama. Friday's storm is a terrible case of deja vu. Nearly 1 year ago, the town was ripped apart by a strong tornado. Friday's storm damaged nearly 200 homes. The Weather Channel's Mike Seidel is there this morning. Good morning, Mike.
And good morning, Amy. A big difference this time around. It was a much weaker tornado, and the Huntsville Times pretty much says it all on the front page this morning. Damage, but no deaths in tornado aftermath. They're thanking their lucky stars. Only 7 injuries, and those folks are all out of the hospital home, and they're going to be okay. No fatalities. Yes, last year on April 27th, an EF5 with winds of 200 miles or higher came through this area, as Amy mentioned, destroyed the town. There was a mobile home here last year. It was blown to smithereens. They just left the debris back there. It was still sitting there. And then yesterday morning, the first tornado of the almost 100 preliminary counted so far yesterday touched down here and blew the other mobile home the owner had put back on the same foundation away, and it's back wrapped around the tree. Take a look at the home over here. Talk to the owner, Kevin Moss. He had just finished his home, got it reconstructed from last year's tornado, and now part of the siding has been ripped off. Also, his circuit breaker box, so he's thinking the power won't be back on for a while. Big difference this year also is the fact that this tornado was an EF2 on the Fujita scale, winds estimated at 125 miles an hour. It was on the ground for about 14 miles and for 19 minutes. 2 tornadoes in this area were about 15 miles north of Huntsville, Alabama. So all in all, Alabama did very, very well in this outbreak compared to last April 27th. And Amy, this morning, they're happy to feel the cool weather. Temperatures around 40. It's going to be a sunny weekend for the cleanup here in northern Alabama. Back to you.
Mike Seidel, thank you. So many stories out there.